cover page, cover slide. Okay. What? Can I interrupt? Can I interrupt for that? Be very careful with using the word productivity. It does not increase their productivity. It increases their amount of work. Increasing amount of work does not necessarily increase productivity. Okay. So very often, a lot of people measure productivity in context of the number of hours of work put in. Employer like employee to be busy working, but is busy working necessarily productive?
No.
If you are making more mistake, is that productive? Not necessary, yeah. Okay, so a lot of time, employer are measuring KPI from busyness, not necessarily from effectiveness. So if you look at productivity in context of busyness, looks like it. So to me, I always look at productivity in context of effectiveness, not busyness. In other words, you have to look at not how much work is done,
喝水有气吗？
but how much effective result is obtained. How much quality, effective quality results are gained. So be very careful with the word productivity. Okay. Okay,
Okay.
Payment.
Okay. So we continue. Uh, we can stay awake for a long period of time lah with little sleep lah. But what we lose progressively is that the ability to think lor. Means like we cannot be more productive, and then we cannot use our skill lah to help the help the company lor. And because we are too tired lah, like previous just now the previous slide on the brain that this thing called thalamus when thalamus is active, we can't really give our best lah at work lah. Yeah. So something interesting is that sleep deprivation you start to starve the brain lah. It's like our brain is lack of oxygen and then lack of energy to function well lah. Then when we are tired, we crave for sugar lor. So sometimes when we are tired, we tend to uh crave for something sweet lah, like ice cream or something, or sweets or something to keep us awake lah. So after 24 hours of sleep deprivation, overall the reduction of 6% in glucose reaching the brain lah. So the parietal lobe and the prefrontal cortex also lose 12 to 14% of their glucose. So this area is the most that we need for thinking lah. Because at work usually the company hire us to perform at our job to perform our job responsibility lah given to us lah. But if our brain is too tired to think, how can we be productive and utilize our skill lah. So for distinguishing between ideas for social control and to be able to tell the difference between good and bad lor. Yeah. So and then for number 4 is that 24 hours without sleep or a week of sleeping 4 to 5 hours a night induce an impairment equivalent to blood alcohol level reach of 0.11 lah, means like 0.1, sorry, means that you are feeling a bit tipsy and then a bit drunk lah, with like sort of drunk lah, because you lose control of yourself already lor.
Not a bit, sorry, it's not a bit drunk. It's drunk.
Oh.
0.1% is not a bit. It already passed the UK permitted limit of 0.08. So it is not a bit drunk. It is drunk.
Yeah. I think I
Okay.
can relate with this point when at night I have insomnia lah. Whenever I cannot sleep like previously I drank a cup of coffee at night lah. Then the whole night I cannot sleep lah. The Starbucks I not Starbucks, the Old Town Old Town, the packaged drink the packet drink the whole night I cannot sleep. The next day completely I can really completely cannot go to work, because it's like when I start to drive down the car park, I have my vision is really blur one. It's like shaking. It's really like feeling like drunk like that. Like anytime I can get into accident, and then yeah, will be badly injured this kind of thing lah. So I can understand that if without a good sleep it really feels like you are really drunk now. Yeah. So and then at 0.1%, you're already prone to mood swing like emotionally, and then over expressive, lose your peripheral vision, depth perception, distance acuity, and exhibit low reasoning lah. This part also I think we can really relate well lah, especially when you are really tired and then you work a lot, and then you don't have enough rest lah. So usually when someone did something that annoys you a bit only you will have a really bad mood lah, and then your mood will, and then you will tend to be annoyed very easily yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to this well lah. If you have a bad mood, and you have a bad day after overwork, and then after having a lot of things to do, and then someone came to annoy you, surely you will be easily annoyed lah. So number 6 is that hospital interns scheduled to work for 24 hours increase their chance of stabbing themselves with a needle or scalpel by 61%. Their risk of crashing a car by 168%, and their risk of a near miss by 460%. So usually hospital interns they are really known to be working around the clock lah. And then at a very low pay, they work around the clock to assist lah, whatever help is needed lah. So when you don't have enough sleep, you tend to lose control of your own reasoning of yourself lah. You tend to feel annoyed, and then you tend to feel like life is really unbearable. That's why some people they end up trying to attempt suicide. Yeah. Or maybe when on their way home they drive very fast so that they will reach home earlier. Yeah. So I think these are all the contributing factor lah that might get the person into trouble lor. And then a study to test on how much the mind can see when it is busy. So this is a video on how much your mind can see lah when it is busy lah. So you all can have a look lor. Sorry. Yes. Okay, so from the video you know that when you are focusing on something you tend to overlook other things so the conclusion is that you cannot change. The conclusion is that you cannot change the limit of your mind now. When your mind is focused on something, too focused on something, you will end up overlooking other things. So actually we pay attention to what we are told to attend to or what we are looking for. And then or what we already know, but what we see is really amazingly limited. You can train your mind yourself to focus on more than one spot or improve your eye muscle somewhere but our limit of our mind is pretty fixed already So this is what we call physical and evolutionary barrier. So these are all the profession Some there are more profession but these are the example some of the professions. So actually we are told to pay attention to what we are looking for, what we already know like fashion designer will only focus on clothes. So whatever anything related to clothes and then the fashion, the type of fabric, everything. Fashion designer knows it all And then for like engineer, they will only focus on the mechanic They won't pay attention much on the like what the fashion designer pay attention like the fabric or type of fabric and then what type of fashion. Yeah, the same goes for other profession as well these are the example Then Simon concluded that we see what we expect to see and are blind to the unexpected. So it's absolutely hard limit to how much we can take in at a given time. So like for example, the security personnel at the airport, they can find what they are looking for, but they won't find what they are not looking for no matter how dangerous it is. So I think this one we can relate Sometimes our mind is set to focus on certain aspect of things that certain aspect of maybe issues at our workplace lah. But when we are too focused on the aspect, we tend to fail to see the bigger picture and other contributing factors or problems that around us as well lah. Yeah. So this is another this is another scenario on driving and while using your mobile phone lah. I think it's quite common nowadays. People used to drive and then uh, during between the at the traffic light they will take out their phone and then they will do some social media, surfing the net, or maybe make a phone call or reply messages. So this is a scenario where a man named Matt Wilhelm, he was riding his bicycle when a lady called Jennifer Stark hit him from behind her car and killed him. So at the time, driving, what happens is that the Jennifer drove the car while talking on the phone. Because when you are talking on the phone, your mind is focusing on listening to what the other parties is trying to tell you, and then your mind is focusing on uh, how you want to respond to the person appropriately. Yeah. So when your mind is too focused on the conversation, it's very hard for you to drive a car and focus on the front, like focus on what happened in front of you lah, like a car suddenly cut into your lane, or maybe if someone was riding a bicycle and then cut into your lane, or maybe someone your car is steering towards near a bicycle. Yeah, there are a lot of factors lah that may cause this accident to happen and kill Matt Wilhelm lah. But the conclusion of the story is that you can't do this lah. You can't drive a car while talking on the phone or texting lah, because your brain has its limit lor. Your brain attention has its limit lah. So they did a study, the team one with a driving stimulator, and then team two driving stimulator while talking on the phone, and the third one is that driving stimulator drinking orange juice and vodka lah, means that you are half drunk lah, almost drunk already lah. So based on the test result by this done by this study, the team one is that they have safe driving, means that they focus on driving alone. Team two have more rear end collision and their braking time was lower lor. So means that while they are talking on the phone, they don't have enough time to focus on driving lah. And then the team three one is a bit drunk one, is that they are more aggressive driving style and then follow the vehicle in front more closely and braking with greater force but so far it's like no accident happen. So it concludes that we don't have enough mental capacity to all the things that we think we can do lah, like we can reply to a text message while driving, or maybe we watch a video while driving. Yeah. So as in attentional load increases, the attentional capacity gradually diminish. So means that if our brain is made to focus on more than one aspect, the capacity gradually getting decrease lah, getting less and less lah. Means that we cannot do everything perfectly well as we wish. So this is a book that I read recently lah. It shows that scientifically that if we continue to ask our brain to switch back and forth between tasks, we waste time and make more mistakes and remember less of what we have done. And then followed by a study conducted by Stanford University by Clifford Ivernas on the epidemic of multitasking. He asked two groups of people, which was shown, they give a screen with several red and blue arrows. The objective of the exercise is to count the red arrows. So they give a lot of arrows, the blue arrows, but you have to count the red arrows. So at first the student answered correctly without much trouble, but as the number of blue arrows increased, the student accustomed to multitasking have a serious problem of counting the red arrows at the time allocated because they got distracted by the blue arrows. And then while the brain of other students who focus on the on single task of counting the red arrows only, they are doing a good job lah. So it seems goes for like the intellectual capacity lah, like of making good judgment and the ability to discriminate lah. Sometimes we look on TV, we watch a lot of news from different media. We cannot absorb all the information presented to us. So in the end, we lose the ability to discriminate and make good judgment. So we just accept the one that presented to us on CNN, on Fox or CNBC. Yeah. Since we can't absorb all the information presented to us, so we just accept it accept it without thinking much. So this is what they call resource depleted when we are too tired or preoccupied. It disables the cognitive elaboration because it takes less brain power to believe than to doubt Like sometimes if anything presented on the news, most of the time we just accept it instead of we doubt whether is it true or not, whether the news is it valid or not. So we just accept everything presented to us because we are too tired to do the heavy lifting of examining new or contradicting information. So we fall back to our bias, opinion, and the people we already trust. That's why I think the media is a very good brainwashing brainwashing how to say,
Brainwashing tool.
yeah. Yeah, the media is a very good brainwashing tool like especially the news like sometimes they want to present more bias on certain political party. So that's why we people also we are tend to being swayed our perspective, our biasness also tend to be swayed by whatever is presented to us because we trust that the media is presenting the truth. Yeah. So next is that is they move on to a company called CMGI work culture where the lawyer have to work through the night means that they have to work OT, and then they have to work until past midnight to complete the latest acquisition It requires a long hour and weekend work from employees so the result is that most of the deal achieved is worse than nothing 83% of the merger acquisition did not boost the shareholder value, and 53% actually reduces the value So it shows that the tunnel vision actually blinds us to the wider consequences of our decision. Yeah. And then, according to a study by social psychologist Stanley Milgram, the urbanite usually disregard the drunk sick on the street as they purposefully navigate through the crowds, not because they are less friendly or warm-hearted, because the city because in living in the city there are a lot of input around us like a lot of distraction, a lot of thing that craving for our attention so in the end our mind is overwhelmed by all these inputs so in the end we tend to filter, and then we tend to blind ourselves by taking in less of we see whatever that is less pleasant to us, we just filter out from our mind so we let in some impression and we leaving out many behind means like we only allow ourselves to see what is pleasant to us and what is maybe make us happy, or what attracts our attention most and then the rest we will just filter out, and we just treat it like this thing never happened at all but actually although it happened right before our eyes so these are the few example like those drunk people on the street, and then global warming, and then pollution, the plastic pollution. Yeah. So when people are overloaded with a lot of distraction and a lot of things that crying out for their attention, trying to get their attention, they restricted their social and moral involvement, because these things like social and moral involvement, maybe it requires their effort, their dedication, or maybe it makes them feel unpleasant because nobody likes to accept that the world is suffering from climate change, or maybe the sea is having a lot of plastic pollution, or maybe there are more beggars on the streets or homeless people. These are all the things unpleasant to us so they restricted their worldview on this involvement means like as people say out of sight out of mind so he was concerned that these not balancing trade-off weren't just operational, they were moral. It's hard to doubt that when you are tired it may be even harder to care when you are very tired with maybe with your workplace, or maybe your family, taking care of your family, or maybe still struggling hard to even make a living lah. So it's even harder to care for social needs lah. Yeah. This is another scenario on the mortgage industry lah. There is a man called Jack. His job is to package up the mortgages to sell to the bank. But everyone actually in this field, what is bad is that everyone turn a blind eye to fraud lah. Fraud means that immoral business lah, business ethic lah, that happen in the mortgage field lah. They are still uncovering fraud from 4 years ago. It's really so obvious that this is whatever they did is a fraud lah. Like you have 7 files from 7 different broker lah, but actually it's the same owner buying 7 property from 7 different banks ah. So one owner is owing the bank 7 mortgages. Oh. So the propagandists and the brainwasher know what the manager and the corporate leader choose to forget. The human mind overloaded and starved of sleep become morally blind now. Means that they know that these are managers and corporate leader, they are usually overworked with managing their staff or maybe paperwork, and also maybe their job responsibility is really a lot lah. So their mind is usually they know that their mind is limited to see this fraud lah. And then when you have a lot of, you are overload, you don't have enough sleep, so it's very hard to be very alert of this fraud happening before your eyes. Yeah. So that's why this fraud can continue to happen for a very long time. And then move on to another scenario. This is related to this is related to the prison where a psychologist study about the impact of situational influence on prison environment lah, on young men and women lah. In this experiment, they recruit 24 mentally and physically healthy young men lah to endure a prison stimulation for 6 days. So the study result show transform in behavior lah, means that when they go in, when they initially the 24 people go in, they are really healthy physically and mentally lah. But after 6 days they come out, it affects their behavior. So it is also related to an experiment of a real life story of Abu Ghraib by Abu Ghraib lah. I know an experiment of an abuse by Chip Frederick lah, a reservist and his colleague on Abu Ghraib lah. Actually, what happened is that the Chip Frederick and his colleague they are initially, I think when they start working, maybe they are not really these immoral people lah. But because due to their toxic working hours like 12-hour shift, and then 7 days a week and 40 days in a row, only they get 1 day off, and then they continue to work for 2 more weeks. So when all this happened after the shift, even though the shift is over, he actually can't leave the prison now. The Frederick can't, Chief Frederick can't leave the prison now. But end up he have to sleep in the dirty and noisy 6 by 9 prison cell lor. And then surrounded by his colleague who are equally mentally exhausted as he is, and then is ill trained means that there is no one around him that could be mentally awake enough lah, how to say, mentally conscious enough to have any moral sensibility left lah. So that's why they end up doing those immoral stuff to the and the abuse lah to the prisoners lor, without feeling having any sense of guilt, or maybe feeling bad for the prisoner ah. Because they are mentally, they are already too tired to think of this one. So it's somehow is related to another perspective. Is like when you are hungry, if you don't eat, you will starve lah. People see that when you are hungry and then when you are starving, then it's a problem. It's time to look for food lah. But what about if you are mentally tired lah? Means that you starve your brain, mentally tired. You can't see it. You can't feel it lah. You can only experience the symptom of tiredness ah. So it shows that when we don't sleep or we work too hard, we cannot see what we are losing lah. The capacity of reasoning, to judge, and then to make good and human decision, and to see the consequences and complexity of our actions ah. Because we can't really see that when our brain is starving lah of due to tiredness we can't really feel it as much as we feel like when we are hungry lah. When we are hungry, our stomach start to growl and then start to feel painful. Yeah. So that's the problem lor. So in the conclusion is that you can't change the limit of your mind. But if we keep trying, why? Because is it the last vestige of the physical model of heroism which we lack any intellectual coronally. So if so, then we better look for a new model fast before more reputation and life are ruined. So it actually we know that we can't change the limit of our mind, is already, there are only certain extent that we can utilize it but why do we end up keep on trying to push beyond our limit? Because maybe due to the current fast moving pace circumstances, or maybe due to uh, our desire maybe for a better career prospect, and then maybe pay rise or something tangible lah. But if whatever we want to achieve lah, but by sacrificing uh by sacrificing our needs lah, our own basic needs lah, I think is better to look for a more feasible or a better model lah, before more life before more life more this one affected because now a lot of people are, I think they are suffering from depression and maybe suicide because of workload lah. It become something common already lah, common to our life lah. Nothing surprise is like for nothing surprise to us lah compared to like maybe decades or centuries ago whereby people commit suicide because they work too much or maybe because they feel that their toxic workplace is doesn't treat them as human lah. Yeah. So this concludes my presentation for today. Any question?
Okay, let me just add 3 more slides on my part. So, Pei Wen, can you just exit your sharing so I can share my slides? Okay. I think in conclusion for this chapter, can everybody hear me? Or at least can everybody who is still present hear me? Okay. I think in conclusion for this chapter, we need to recognize this. Willful blindness is there. But the limit of our mind can affect willful blindness further. The limits of our mind will impact willful blindness further. But I want to just voice out that there are 4 ways that the limit of our mind can have an impact on willful blindness. There are 4 ways. Okay? In other words, what I'm trying to say is, if we understand the limit of our mind, and there are 4 different scenarios which can affect the limit of our mind, and that limit of our mind will increase willful blindness. Meaning, if the limit of our mind is low, willful blindness goes up. In other words, when the battery, our mental battery, the battery in our mind is on low, then our willful blindness will go up higher. But if our mental battery is high, then it helps reduce willful blindness. This is the first thing we need to understand. So this is why when we are tired, it implies that battery is low. Okay, I'm going to use the battery to represent. So I'm going to use the battery to represent the mind, the capacity of our mind. Okay. Now, first impact on the capacity of our mind, is by our mind's capacity to grow. In other words, the size of the battery is not fixed one. We can grow the size of our mental battery. Now, if you think about it, when we were younger, our mental capacity is lower, correct? Then, as we grow older, as we experience more and more difficult mental problem, it train and grow our battery, our mental battery, or our mental capacity. That's why your mind's capacity. So my first question basically is this. How much effort have you put in to grow your mental capacity? Are you too busy to grow your mental capacity? Now, one thing we have realized basically is this. You'll notice that people stop growing much once they go out to work because they become very busy. Every day they're busy fulfilling the bosses and the company's requirement. And then when the end of the day, they are too tired. They go back, don't even have much energy and much mental capacity left, much battery left to talk about personal development or personal growth. What still is if when you later start paktor, start getting married, start having children, you have more and more things to fulfill. And when you have more and more things to fulfill, you have actually less and less time to grow. So your battery, the size of your mental capacity, the size of your mental battery is fixed already. You see this happening with a lot of older generation. They stop growing. They don't learn new things. They don't get a bigger, they don't get a bigger understanding and perception of life. So if they don't develop a bigger understanding and perception of life, how has their mental capacity grown? So their mental capacity or the size of the battery fixed already. That's it. So the one thing I want to challenge you basically is this. Never give up your time and your responsibility to grow your mental capacity. Never. So make sure you allocate time because it's a very important thing. And if those of you who have gone through 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, remember the difference between important and urgent. A lot of the time, the work requirement make life urgent. And we are so caught up with urgent that we forget the important. And very often, your personal mental growth doesn't seem urgent one. Okay? And when it becomes urgent, what happens is this. Let's say, for example, right? You enroll in a master's program. But your urgency to finish the master's program limits your mental growth. Why? You all end up only trying to study to pass exam, not to develop understanding and application. So basically, when we're talking about mental capacity, it is understanding and application, not knowledge, not memory work. Okay? It's the mindset, it's your paradigm, it's the worldview that you develop, your philosophy of life, your understanding of life. So that's the first thing. So when you develop your battery size, if you keep growing your battery size, it will help to reduce willful blindness. Right? Second, on the limits of the mind, is what I call your mind's maximum capacity. Now, today, you have a fixed battery size. Everybody has a fixed battery size, correct? Now, if I were to ask you, think about it, for many of you who have been joining YMAT for a while, have your mental battery size increased over the years that you were involved with YMAT? If it hasn't, then you have wasted your time in YMAT. So now, your battery size is bigger than before, okay? Can I say that? So if your battery size is bigger than before, your battery, your mind battery, has a maximum capacity. It's the same like when you charge your telephone, your handphone, and charge until you get 100%. Now, how do we charge our mental capacity? Rest. Sleep. Sleep and rest. Okay? There are two. Just now, Payment went through. There are two. One, make sure you have enough sleep. Second, make sure you understand the drainage speed, the speed of draining your battery. After 4 hours, your mental capacity dropped significantly. During the first 4 hours, your mental capacity is high, right? But of course, every start of the day, first 4 hours, it depends on how full your battery is. And how full your battery is dependent on last night, whether you get enough rest or not. So now, not only do you need to allocate time to make sure you grow your battery size, you also have to make sure in your daily and weekly routine, you have to sleep enough to ensure maximum capacity for the day. That means you have to make sure you sleep enough so that for the day, you have 100% to start with. And then the second thing, you have to make sure you know how to pace yourself on how you drain out your mental energy. After 4 hours, take a break. Or maybe you should every 2 hours, take a break. So the rest, right, will help you to recuperate the maximum capacity of your mind. So you have to understand how to mine, how to extract your maximum mental energy so that you can do the best work. 3, then you need to understand. That's why 2 and 3. 2, make sure you have enough rest. 3, your mind's present capacity. Simply meaning, by the time you have to do something, how important is the thing you have to do? Do I have enough mental energy left to do a good job with that thing? Because the importance of that activity you need to do should be related to your present energy left in your mind. So, which is why at the early morning, you should be doing the most important thing, so that you leave the less important thing to later part of the day when your mind's capacity, present capacity is low. Why? Because your chances of making a mistake, due to willful blindness is high when your mind's present capacity is low. But because the task that you are doing is not so important, it won't be so costly even if you make a mistake. Right? And 4, multitask. We are multitask generation. But always remember, zero-sum game. If at that present capacity, you are only at 50%, if you have 50% mental energy and you are doing 5 tasks at the same time, that means you can only give 10% to each task. Now, if you give 10% energy to each task, what are the chances that that task will kena mistake due to willful blindness? Very high. Worse still, if you have very low mental present capacity, that means you only got 2 bar, 20%. If you have 20% and you are still multitasking, you share the 20% to the multitask, you are in trouble. Because each task will get extremely low amount of mental energy. So this is something you have to consider. And in considering the limit of your mind and the limit due to these 4 different levels, then you can minimize mistake due to willful blindness. That's why the human mind, overloaded and starved of sleep, becomes morally blind. And this is very important. Now, why is this very important? Today's world, our work culture is always overloaded. Our environment have so much distraction, especially internet distraction. It distracts us and starves us of sleep. That's why it's so easy for everybody to become busy at work, because our work environment requires so much. Our study environment also requires so much. And then we come home. There is also so much distraction, especially online distraction, screen distraction. We can get caught up with so much of this computer game, online game, social media, WhatsApp messages, you name it. And all this is overloading and taking away our sleep. Now, if this culture, if this society now that we are living in have a tendency to do that, what will be the consequence? More and more people's mind become overloaded and starved of sleep, means more and more people become morally blind. If more and more people become morally blind, society will become immoral. And this is happening. You look at our society. It's happening. You will see that we are beginning to justify doing things that are not right. So if we do that, now my question for you is this. We are all in this pot. And people are becoming more and more immoral. We are in this we are in this pot of growing immorality. If we join their lifestyle of busyness, of distraction, we are going to become like that, and we will be boiled into immorality. We need to jump out while we still have the strength. That's why we need to jump out of this lifestyle. We need to be very intentional to make sure that we are growing our mind's capacity. We are having enough rest to maximize our mind's capacity. We are very clear in prioritizing our tasks. When we understand our mind's present capacity and minimize multitasking, so that then, only then, can we make a difference. Otherwise, how do we make a difference? When we don't have the mental capacity, we are not at our best, we will do this, become morally blind. So when we become morally blind because we are overloaded and starved of sleep, we are like the rest of the world, and we are not making a difference. This is very crucial. This chapter is to understand this physical limitation of our mind. But we can maximize it. That's my point. We can maximize it by not joining the boiling pot of our present culture that is so busy and so pressured and that is so distracted